to Atrakate, where the say trade, thought find out, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. One of his advocacy helping entrepreneurs unlock original business ideas and turn them into millions of revenue. And of course, an author too, the author of the book Centilla, no other than Master Robert Gaines.
Thank you, Daniel.
Welcome once again, Mr. Robert, and I hope you will be my avid guest to all my podcasts. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please not invite, please introduce yourself more that I miss?
Hi, everybody. I'm Robert Gaines. I'm a military veteran and an author of the book Scintilla, and just released a second edition of the book. And Daniel and I, hopefully, we're going to have a great conversation about that. The book is an exploration of some of the things that I learned in my path along in entrepreneurship. Um, and also, I'm a graduate of the University of Louisville and graduated with a business management degree.
Yes, and again, Mr. Robert, thank you for sharing your book to the world as well as your knowledge through it. So today let's talk about something good, something that for sure our listeners will empower, elevating your brand by publishing a book just like your Scintilla. So tell us, let's start with the big idea. How does publishing a book move beyond simply having a credential to a fundamentally elevated personal or business brand?
Great question, Daniel. So, in Daniel Priestley's book called Key Person of Influence, there's a, I think there's an entire chapter dedicated to establishing your expertise by publishing a book. And the book, his book is fantastic. It's well worth getting, but he really pushes in there to establish your brand by writing a book. And a lot of people will say, "Hey, I'm not a complete expert in this particular area, or I'm not a writer." But that's okay because a lot of books that are published, those people don't have the expertise. There's still a lot of research. Even if you are an expert, you're going to have to do a lot of work. And as far as writing, that's a skill that can be gained over time. So I still believe that publishing a book is a great way to establish your brand, your authority in the space, and it's a great calling card. So my book is on the shelves of a lot of people and it reminds people, it's on their desk, it's around. So think of it as having a very gigantic business card on their desk. So I think it's a great tool. It's a great giveaway. It's a great way to sell and make money. And also you can give them away and use it as a like a squeeze page to get emails and so forth to build a mailing list. So a book is a very versatile tool, Daniel.
And powerful too. In a world of newsletters, Mr. Robert, podcasts, and social media, why is a book still considered the ultimate business card? What is the unique authority does it confer that the other content formats cannot?
I think too, much like having a degree, getting a degree takes a lot of time and a lot of discipline. Although it's not as important as it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, anybody that knows that you have a degree knows that you spent a great deal of time to earn that. Well, writing a book is the same way. A newsletter, 6, 7 pages, that's intense and that can take a certain level of expertise. But when you commit to the time and develop the research for a 150, 200, 300-page book, they can see physically by the size of the book itself your level of expertise. And so I think that's the big difference. I'm still a big fan of newsletters and email marketing, but a big, thick book that really shows how much you know. And it can show not just the depth of your knowledge, but also the width or the breadth of your knowledge of all the different things you might know.
Mr. Robert, how can someone determine if their idea is a truly a book worthy and aligned with their brand's strategic goals? What is the line between a good topic and a brand elevating platform?
I think, of course, you've got to think about your niche. You've got to think about your demographic, your ideal customer. A lot of people don't know who that is. I mean, my audience is very specific. Although my podcast, for instance, I don't have a niche other than, let's say, entrepreneurs that are middle age. Um, to answer your question, I would say if that business, if that entrepreneur knows their niche, knows their demographic, or as they say now, the customer avatar, that book needs to solve a specific problem that that person has. And I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, Daniel, but I'm writing a follow-up book to Scintilla, which is specifically about using LinkedIn and networking, which is another vital piece of the puzzle. So there's like with my first book, Scintilla, I was answering a question and solving a problem that no other book had done before. You don't necessarily have to do that to publish a book, but you do need to be solving a problem in that book that speaks specifically to your demographic. If you do that, you'll be way ahead of a lot of other independent authors.
On the process of positioning, Mr. Robert, the publishing landscape has radically changed. Walk us through the strategic choice between traditional, hybrid, and self publishing for brand elevation. What route gives you the most control over your brand narrative and timeline?
Great question, Daniel. There's a lot to unpack there. That's a good and complicated question. So first, let's just establish the difference between traditional publishing, hybrid, and independent. Traditional publishing would be if you go with Penguin Random House, a really big publisher. You have an agent, and you send in your manuscript, and they say, "Okay, we're going to give you $10,000 to finish this book or to publish this manuscript." Those deals, I know a few published authors, and I don't know too many people that brag about their deals. It's because publishing has really gotten tough in the last, let's say, 20 years, just like the music industry. So that's traditional publishing. You submit your manuscript, they approve, and they just usually you get a one-time fee and maybe you get some money on the back end. It's not really very lucrative. It gives you, for people that want to have that brand that they're published by Penguin Random House, it does give you a little bit of a push there. But as far as monetarily, I think it's probably the least attractive of the three options. And then you mentioned hybrid. So a hybrid can be many different things, but sometimes I think of the vanity press. So you go to them and they help you potentially develop the book. You're paying them really. So it's the inverse of the traditional publishing. That's one of many different ways that there's hybrid publishers. And then, of course, independent publishing, which is what I did. I wrote the book, I edited it. I did get some help with some aspects of the editing, and I hired a cover designer, but I even narrated my own audiobook. So I pretty much did a complete 100% grassroots campaign, but I get 100% of the commission when I sell a book. Whereas that's also typically the arrangement with a hybrid publisher too, or it can be. But you have to give those hybrid publishers a lot of money up front. So I didn't have a large initial financial outlay. So that's just we could spend the whole episode just on this because it's an interesting subject. But that's the three in short. And I went with independent publishing because I wasn't sure at first if I was going to publish or not. I started to write. The manuscript got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I thought, okay, now I've got to figure out how to do this through KDP, which is a whole other skill set. So you got to learn to write. You got to do the research, and then you got to figure out how to get your content up on KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing or Amazon's publishing platform for independent publishers.
Truly, truly interesting, Mr. Robert. A book exists in a crowded marketplace. How do you craft a title, subtitle, or a core hook that does not just describe the book, but instantly elevates your brand's positioning and makes you the go to voice?
I would say the title, the subtitle, and the cover design is everything. So anybody who's been a podcaster for more than 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, they know the thumbnail sells the episode. You got the title. Most people don't read descriptions, but they're going to read the title of the video and they're going to look at the thumbnail. A book is exactly the same way. So you need to spend a lot of effort. So again, going back to what we just mentioned, Daniel, Once you know who you're speaking to, your demographic or your customer avatar, you have to explain on the cover of that book, usually through the subtitle, explain to them exactly the benefit of reading that book. So it speaks to whatever the problem is, and you're explaining how you're solving that problem. If you finish this book, you're going to solve this problem. So for my book, it says the ultimate guide to generating products, services, or businesses, as far as ideas. So if you need an idea, you pick up Scintilla. So the same thing for you. If you're speaking to a particular demographic and solving a problem, the cover needs to speak to that. And of course, you can do keyword researches and Google searches and find out what people are interested in and what they're looking for. And if that aligns with your expertise, there you go. Now you've got a title and a subtitle. So I would say the subtitle is just as important as the title. And don't go cheap on your cover. That cover really is that's your advertising, that's your billboard. So you're going to spend some money on that.
Yes, the cover itself. How should the book's messaging, tone, and visual identity be woven into the existing ecosystem of your brand, your website, speaking topics, services, so you feel like natural flagship?
That's interesting. So since I'm a relatively fledgling author, I've seen some AI tools. I've seen people use AI to try to give this unified voice across all of their social media. Honestly, Daniel, that part I don't worry about very much. I just keep writing, and I'm only, a book and a half in. Technically, I'm halfway finished with my follow-up book to Scintilla. So it's almost like a band. If you're a really fan of a band, most bands don't really find themselves until, let's say, their 3rd album or their 3rd major release. Well, as an author, I feel that same way. So I'm not so deep in this journey that I'm worried about some unified message all the way across. I mean, the way I speak is how I write, so that's one way where I can keep consistency across all of my social media, my website, and my book. Hopefully, I've answered that question correctly, Daniel. I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Indeed. Indeed, Mr. Robert, indeed. For a busy executive or entrepreneur, writing a book is a monumental task. What does a realistic, sustainable writing process look like that does not require disappearing for a year?
Great, you got great questions, Daniel. You do a lot of
Thank you.
research, and I appreciate that. It makes it very interesting for me. So, obviously, I'm very excited about the book and writing, and I love helping fledgling writers too, or experienced writers as well. Um, I think that you have to schedule it, and this is going to be just a slight sidetrack, but I've been trying to lose 10 pounds just like the rest of us for a couple of years now. And I realized it because I preach this from a business perspective. I always say, if something isn't written down, if the goal isn't written down, or if something isn't measured, the work doesn't get done. So for writing in the morning, I set aside 2 hours in the morning to do writing because again, I'm writing a follow-up book. So it's, I have to dedicate a lot of time. And I sit down at my desk like I'm going to work. So you have to schedule it. It's in my phone. I have an alert that comes up. So you need to dedicate a time and a place where you're going to make that book happen. And I would say at least 30 minutes a day. Depends on how big of a book you want to write and how quickly you want it out. But if you're working 2 hours a day, you can get through a lot. Um, you'll be a little bit disappointed your first month or two if you're not a regular writer, but the skills will come. 2 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, you'll start to move very, very quick. So anyway, what I was going to say about the diet is I'm actually using measuring cups now to how much I eat on my plate. I can measure it in cups. So if I have so much rice, I know I'm having half a rice, half a cup of rice, same thing with writing. You have to measure it. You're going to look at number of words that you've done per day. I prefer just to to mark it down as amount of time. And 2 hours for me seems to be perfect. Some people do their best writing in the evening. Some people find that their time is better in the morning. I'm more creative in the morning, so I set 2 hours in the morning. So put it on the schedule, Daniel. That's how you get through writing a book without having to escape to the mountains for 6 months, because you really don't need to do that. You just need to put it on your calendar and stick to that schedule.
Schedule indeed, people, and organize for sure. If the primary goal is brand elevation, how do you measure success beyond copies sold? What are the key performance indicators? Increase premium inquiries or speaking fee growth or partnership requests?
Also, another great question. So, KPIs are really important. I just matter of fact, I just read the book that's on KPI. I can't think of the name of the title. But yeah, anybody who's serious needs to look at key performance indicators. Again, I'm much more earlier in my journey. So right now, I like to look at it as sales. Unlike a lot of other entrepreneurs, I don't have a value ladder. In other words, I don't try to work people up from the book to some other expensive service. A lot of people do, and that's okay. I'm considered what they call a low ticket entrepreneur. I sell relatively low cost products. I'm not trying to do some expensive service like taking them off on a seminar for $10,000 like other people do. So for me, the copies sold is a pretty solid, and also to the outreach that I get, increase in subscribers on the YouTube page, the increase in connections on LinkedIn. So that's how I would measure it, at least at this stage. Now, later on, I'm going to have more complex KPIs, but at this stage, I'm just happy to have book sales and book reviews. So even if you've got great sales, if you want to really power your sales, you've got to get more reviews. So my second edition just came out. It's brand new. It doesn't have any reviews just yet, even though the original version of it does. I'm really going to aggressively start pursuing trying to get reviews for the book, because that helps a lot. So that's a great thing to watch too, is your review number in addition to your sales.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And Mr. Robert, how do you avoid the post launch lump and ensure the book continues to work as a brand elevator 12 or 24 months after its release?
Great question. So in my case, I dedicated a website to additional material to the book, which allows me to create a PDF and update information as things change in the industry. Because, as you know, Daniel, things are moving very, very fast. And I did that. So I've constantly put new information and addendums and additional materials. And the book tries to encourage people to go to that site very frequently. So I would say, I would recommend to most authors, if you've got a book out there, make sure the book directs them to somewhere, probably a website that you own and control, where you can get customers' email addresses, and then have a whole host of additional documents and bonus material that people can look at. And you can keep that material evergreen, keep it fresh. And let's say after a year or two, after compiling all of this additional information, you just update your book and come out with a second edition. And I think there are some really big authors out there, some of which are independently published. I think they should put out a new edition about every 2 years, because information's constantly changing. So the short answer to your question, I have a lot of extra material available on the website, so you can keep it's very easy to update that and keep it fresh. And then when you've got a whole bunch of new ideas and things down there, you just roll that into a later edition for your book.
Mr. Robert, beyond the external perception, how does the process of writing and publishing a book change the author's own sense of their expertise and confidence? How does the internal shift fuel the external brand elevation?
Mm. When I went back and did the second edition, I actually had to challenge some things that I wrote the first time around. But just in publishing the first one, you're going to look at those chapters over and over and over again before publishing. So you're going to wrestle with that material, and ideas that I felt were at least halfway good. from the first edition. When I wrote the second edition, I actually took a few things out that I didn't think were as strong, and I put in other information that was stronger. So I think the fact that you're having to do so much research on the book does make you stronger on your subject, because let's face it, we don't know everything, and our craft gets better as we enhance our knowledge and we research. So, somebody said a long time ago, one way to really learn something or master it is to learn how to teach it. And writing a book is very much like that. So I think wrestling with the research and wrestling with your own ideas and concepts really makes you understand what you're an expert in on a much deeper level.
In a much deeper level, and let's talk about the multiplier effect, Mr. Robert. How does a book act as a force multiplier for your other marketing efforts, making your speaking, social media, and PR more effective?
I think for speakers, which I'm not part, I've done speeches, but that's not something I'm actively pursuing. But what's great about a book, unlike a website, unlike your social media, once you get your book out into the world, sometimes that gets passed around to other people. It goes from desk to desk. People borrow it. You can send it as gifts. So I think it multiplies it because, again, it's like having a billboard on someone's shelf or on someone's desks. So I think it's a very, very powerful tool, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Robert. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in third season, and my Food 101 is sixth season this December. Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101 review, Music 101 fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in second season of my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, and of course my Entrepreneurship 101. So please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. And Mr. Robert will be my guest also on Entrepreneurship 101. For someone convinced of the why, but paralyzed by the how, what is the single most important first action they should take this week to start the journey from idea to brand elevating book?
Oh, wow. Okay, from why to how. So if the goal is to write a book, start to write a list of things you feel that you're very strong in. And so I started that way. I started with just one line ideas, single sentences. Get yourself a legal. I love legal pads. I talk about my love affair with certain types of pens and legal pads in the book. So I'm very formulaic. But I sat down and I wrote things that I felt I had some degree of expertise in, that I could speak with some authority. And then from those singular ideas became paragraphs. The paragraphs became pages. The pages became chapters. So don't overwhelm yourself trying to think of this grand concept for the book. Start very small. It's that old phrase, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Start with words, sentences, and paragraphs. Don't get too stressed. You can cast a lot of ideas across a lot of pages, and then eventually, so write, go into your creative phase. And when you're done with that, go back and edit and pull it together and just keep doing that. And at the end, if you dedicate the time, you'll have a book at the end of it.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Robert. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your projects, or anything you want to promote on Abstract Essay?
Thank you so much. Yes, Scintilla now in its second edition, because the cover that's up now is the first edition, but that's the audio book. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Robert. Go ahead, Mr. Robert.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. So the audio book is still in the first edition. It's available on audible.com through Amazon. The soft cover, hardcover, and Kindle are in their second edition, and that's available on Amazon. I run a free writers group on Facebook. and on LinkedIn. I'm much more active on LinkedIn, so I would encourage people to connect with me there. I also host a podcast, the Free Time Mastermind podcast, on YouTube. I'm very easy to get a hold of. I respond to messages, and I hope to hear from you.
Yes, people, support Mr. Robert Gaines because if you support him for more and more empowering books like this to come, more empowering advocacy will rise. So, Mr. Robert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Always a pleasure, sir.
Monica, people, see you soon.